Hello, Buckeye fans. We are here at the Woody Hayes Athletics Center again after another Tuesday of interviews with Ryan Day and Jim Knowles. I'm Patrick Murphy, Dave Biddle, Steve Hellwagon, Bucknuts 24/7 Sports. Dave, what was the most interesting thing you heard Ryan Day say today?
Well, I mean, it's not really a football thing. I mean, I guess it technically is, but he was asked about the Lou Holtz back and forth, and the reporter said, "This is really our first time to get a chance to talk to you." I mean, after the game, he talked about it a little bit, but because he didn't have Ryan Day did. For those that don't know, Ryan Day didn't have his Tuesday press conference last week because of the bye week. He also didn't have the lightning round on Thursday, so I thought it was interesting. He did not want to really get too much into the back and forth with Lou Holtz. In fact, he didn't want to get into it at all. But then he added, and I loved this. This was a mic drop moment. He goes, "I will say this though. I'm very proud that our team is 2-0 against Notre Dame the last 2 years." Again, a mic drop moment.
See, babe.
And so I thought that was the most interesting thing from the Ryan Day portion of the press conference.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was interesting. I think a lot of his talk about, they're 4-0 and they've won 4 games, and that was a huge accomplishment to win on the road against a top 10 team at Notre Dame. Notre Dame's back in the top 10 after beating Duke last week in a miraculous finish over there. So I think he does consider it a major accomplishment, but he understands they have not arrived yet, and they have a lot of work that still needs to be done. A lot of issues in the run game that came up today, a lot of issues with the pass rush on defense that came up today. He addressed them. We've got the video of his comments already up on the internet. We're going to add more to that. And also Jim Knowles, his video is also in the comments section underneath the Ryan Day video, so you can search those out. Sue, how are you doing? Great to see that Sue has responded there. She is a regular on all the Ohio State online coverage, certainly. So, yeah, very, very, very good. We're about what you'd expect, and he also tried to spin everything forward to Maryland. This is the first time these two programs will meet in 9 times as Big Ten opponents, both of them undefeated.
Yeah, one more thing that I want to add. I had a chance to ask Coach Day about quarterback sneaks, and he's used them in the past. He says he used it a lot with Justin Fields. I don't think they use it a lot. They did use it with Jay Fields.
They are no Philadelphia Eagles. Jim Knowles brought up his team, Philadelphia, his hometown team.
Yes. They use it a few times with C.J. Stroud. Again, not very often. I asked Coach Day, you guys have used it since you've been here, but not very often. What's your philosophy with quarterback sneaks? Obviously, it's not a gimme. Ohio State stopped Notre Dame on a quarterback sneak. I was watching a lot of NFL yesterday. Other than the Eagles, Sunday, I should say, there were a lot of QB sneaks that were stuffed in college football as well this past weekend. But I wanted to know his philosophy. He uses them sometimes, but not very often. Why is that? And he kind of talked around it a little bit. What was your take on the answer he gave?
It doesn't sound like they practice it much, and he doesn't not trust, but he knew Justin Fields could do it. He'd done it at Georgia. He didn't do it a ton with CJ. It just doesn't sound like something that's really in their arsenal a ton. Kyle McCord, you asked it. You even brought up Kyle McCord's physical, what he's listed at.
He's a big burly man,
right? So you think he would be good at it, but it just didn't sound like he didn't sound like he fully trusts Kyle, and I don't think he fully trusts CJ either in doing it, which I think is strange because I do think it can be a successful thing. Obviously, if you lose the ball there, that's a huge momentum turn if the other team recovers it, or if you don't get it on 4th down. But to me, this is a play that, not to say that it's not difficult to do, but you have a blueprint out there of how it can be done, and I'm surprised they don't do it more.
I don't get it. It's just, especially a team that struggles so much in short yardage. It's not we don't need it because we're just kicking butt in 3rd and 1 and 4th and 1. We're having to do jet sweeps on 4th and 1 and getting stuffed on a jet sweep. It's especially for this team, you would think using the court. I'm not saying you got to do it all the time on it. He also mentioned, it's pretty obvious if you go under center, that's going to be the first option. The defense is going to think that's what you're doing, and they're going to do maybe what Ohio State did against Notre Dame, crash the middle linebacker in there. But especially a team like Ohio State that struggles in short yardage, I would love to see them mix in the quarterback sneak just every now and then.
Well, and here's the thing, too, to your point about teams expecting it, then do something off of it. Line up in that formation like the Eagles do with the running backs right behind the quarterback, and hand it off to one of the running backs to go to the outside, and you probably got some yards there. I mean, I've always been surprised with this team, its lack of creativity when we've talked about red zone, short yardage issues. And, not to continue to use NFL examples, but the Kansas City Chiefs aren't great in short yardage just running the ball straight either, but they do a lot of motions, the quick pitches to the tight ends and the running backs, things like that, like more often than not, this team's more talented than the team that they're lining up against. You could be able to get away with some of that stuff if you just can't figure out how to run Mayan Williams or chip train them up the middle. I'm surprised Ryan Day hasn't gone to a little bit more creativity. It doesn't have to be wacky stuff, just doing different things than what isn't working.
Yeah, I said this last week any number of places. We're driving back on Sunday, and Josh Perry made the very cogent analysis that the one play where they rolled out and tried to throw the ball to the covered tight ends, it didn't work against Indiana, and so they figured, well, why not bring it back against Notre Dame? So, but we digress.
Maybe they thought, they'll never run this stupid
They'll
play
never
again.
run that
Yes,
one
we
again.
will.
Yes, we will.
Don't rule
We're
anything
going to double
out.
down on it.
Yeah. Well, if the play would have worked at least one of the times, I think you're okay with it. Anyway, let's move on. Ryan Day was very focused, Jim Knowles too. Moving on to these coming weeks, specifically Maryland. I think how they approach this game is going to be really, really interesting because coming out of last year's bye week, Ohio State wasn't great. They didn't seem to take that next step. Now, obviously, this bye week's a lot earlier in the season. How do you kind of expect, based on what you heard and hear, this team to come out going against what, this is not Maryland of a handful of years ago where you were just going to run them over at Ohio Stadium. This should be a competitive football game, even despite what the odds say.
Yeah, I mean, from Ohio State's perspective, I think it's really good this game's in Columbus coming off the bye. Because, even going back to the Tressel era, and yeah, there have been exceptions. For some reason, Ohio State just kind of does look lackadaisical more often than not after bye weeks. And, hopefully that's not the case this week. But, I can see especially with Tagovailoa has always been explosive, and, Jim Knowles talked about that. But what we're seeing now is you're seeing a veteran quarterback. He looks like a guy that's in his fourth year of being a starting quarterback. He's not a turnover machine like he was as a freshman and sophomore. He cut that down a little bit last year. He was second team All Big Ten. C.J. Stroud first team, Tagovailoa second team, and now he's back. And you're seeing him make less mistakes, but still be explosive. And he can run. They don't use him a lot as a runner, but he can run. Had a touchdown against Ohio State last year on the ground. Also had 2 passing touchdowns, no interceptions. So it's going to be interesting how they try to contain him. It's like the old Dan Patrick. You're not going to stop him. You can only hope to contain him. So, yeah, I do think, we'll see it. It'll be interesting to see how Ohio State responds coming off the bye because, especially it being a noon game. Now, a couple things help. It is the fact that Maryland's 5-0. I'm surprised they're not ranked. So that's going to get your attention. And the fact that Maryland gave them a really good game last year. Maryland was leading at halftime last year in College Park. I think that's going to help Ohio State get focused, but I still need to see it first because it seems like time and time again we're talking about how Ohio State's lackadaisical coming off of a off week.
Well, I got to tell you, I was looking in on that game last week against Indiana. I think they led 27-3 at halftime. They just blew Indiana's doors off in the first half. And I think the second play of the game, he hit Deshaun Jones for like a 60-yard gain, and they were in the end zone, immediately. So they're going to come out ready to go. That's what they showed last week against Indiana. I think that's what they're going to do again this week against Ohio State. Ohio State's got to match that. And for Ohio State to be a little sleepy coming off the open week, there's really no time for that. You've got to come out ready to go and hit Maryland in the mouth on the first play. I think that's what it is. They got to be the more physical team. Got to start establishing that physical dominance in some of these games, or these games are going to go down to the wire. And that's just, I don't see this team blowing people out here the rest of the way. Maybe Purdue on the road, Michigan State they should blow out because Minnesota.
The artists formerly known as Michigan State. And even when Michigan State, usually Ohio State does really well against Michigan State in East Lansing. They've had a few times they've blown out Michigan State here, but we also know Michigan State has ruined seasons here in 1998. 2015. There was one in the 70s before my time as well here in Columbus.
Take of the rumors of Coach Irving Myers?
I'm not buying that at all. I'll be shocked if Urban Meyer takes the Michigan State job.
Myers up there in Michigan State.
I am on record. I think Urban will coach again at some point because I do not think he's a very prideful man. I do not think he wants to go out like
legacy.
That. Yeah, that Jacksonville disaster. I don't think he wants that to be his last job. But I don't think, maybe I'm wrong, I don't think Urban Meyer, I'm not buying that at all, that he's interested in the Michigan State job. Now, money talks. They throw $15 million a year at him, different story. But he doesn't need money. Now, again, though, I'm sure there's a certain dollar figure he would do it for, but I'm not buying it. Are you guys buying it?
No. Nebraska, I think, made some inquiries when they hired Matt Rule, and he shut that down.
No, I'm not going to Lincoln.
If you are Urban Meyer, yes, to your point, you don't want your legacy to end that way. But do you want your legacy in Columbus to be you went to another Big Ten? I know the schedules are changing here, and there won't be divisions, but do you want to be coming into Ohio Stadium and facing this team? And I mean, if he needed a job, like that would make sense. But he doesn't need to prove anything at the college level.
He's a grandpa.
You should, if I think not only the money has to be right, but it has to be a program where he can go in and win. Yeah. I don't think he wants to rebuild, and I don't think he wants to have to face an Ohio State and a Michigan regularly, especially an Ohio State team that A, could make him look bad, and B, that he coached at and won a national title. Why? Maybe if something came up on whatever becomes the Pac-12 or maybe a team in the Big 12, place he hasn't coached before where he really wouldn't piss off any fans by going there. I don't think he would have ever gone back to the SEC just because it would have tainted what he did at Florida. So, that's just my personal opinion. He's never said as much as that, but I think we all agree it would be surprising if he was in there. Speaking of the defense, Steve, and what Maryland brings to town, the pass rush continues to be something we talk about quite a bit. They seem to be a lot less concerned about it than we are. What is your take on what you see and how the coaches are kind of approaching this? Because it continues to come up on the front row. We've all continued to write about it. What do you make of the pass rush again this week?
I don't even know what to say. I'm just kind of like agog at the whole thing, and why they didn't substitute those guys a few plays last week against Notre Dame is kind of still beyond me. For all the non plus plays they're getting out of that group of guys, you'd think that you'd try something different and get some other people a chance to try and make a play, like a Caden Curry or a Kenyatta Jackson. But Notre Dame has one of the best offensive lines in football, so I take that for whatever it is. But they went the distance with Sawyer and Tuimoloau. It paid off in the end. Tuimoloau made the two plays that got them the stop that they had to have. But again, they got to get more out of that group. It's just, and he made a good point today. If you're forming in pressure, forming in front can get you pressure without having to blitz. It really improves everything that happens on the back end. I think the secondary has been spectacular to date. The longest touchdown this defense has given up is 2 yards. 2 yards. Jim Knowles, we didn't know you had it in you. Holy cow. We'll see.
That may change this weekend.
That may change. It's going to change here at some point. But that has been very impressive, no doubt. A great start for the defense, and now they got to continue to carry it over. This is one of the best offenses they're going to play all year.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you, Dave, what kind of challenge is this, specifically the secondary? He talked about the pass rush, but the secondary and what they're going to face. Obviously, Notre Dame, Western Kentucky presented some challenges. This seems like it's as tough as you'll see all season.
Yeah, this will definitely be tougher than what they saw against Western Kentucky. Everybody built Western Kentucky up, and Western Kentucky's a good group of 5 team, and they obviously rely on their offense. Notre Dame, very good defensively, a big offensive line, not a great downfield passing attack. And Tagovailoa did it to him last year. I mean, he had almost 300 yards last year. So this will be a big test for the secondary. I agree with Steve. I've been so impressed with Ohio State secondary. So I'm really encouraged by what I've seen, but I cannot wait for Saturday to see if they pass what's going to be their biggest test so far this season. And like to Pat's point, this might be their biggest test all year. You look at Penn State, Drew Allers looked okay. Some of his stats have looked really good, but they, against bad defenses. But I watched them against Northwestern last week. He was sailing a lot of passes. So I think Tagovailoa is better than him at this stage. Aller, of course, is just a sophomore. And then J.J. McCarthy can obviously make plays, but Tagovailoa is a little bit more explosive as far as throwing the ball down the field. So I'm looking forward to seeing how Denzel Burke and Davis Igbinosun and Jordan Hancock and Sonny Styles and Lathan Ransom and all these guys handle this, because so far this is going to be by far their biggest test.
To me, if Denzel Burke continues to play the way he is, I mean, you've got a guy who can lock down one side of the field. And Jim Knowles was asked, I think he got targeted once against Notre Dame, and that's largely because his guy wasn't open, because he was in good coverage. And they can then scheme things for the other side of the field. I think Maryland's group of receivers is probably as tough as they'll face. I mean, Notre Dame has obviously a veteran quarterback, but your top receiver was, a running back who made the move. So
Michigan's are pretty good.
And Michigan's are good. You certainly see that down the road, but at least so far, this will definitely be the group. Test Denzel Burke and test a guy like, you mentioned Igbenogson. Physical guy. He's gotten caught a couple times, penalties. I think that'll be big to continue to clean up for him. But on the whole, I think the secondary has been really good, and these safeties quietly have played well. Rotating Sonny Styles with Jordan Hancock has worked out all right. I've been really impressed. Steve, you asked about the linebackers, and specifically Cody Simon getting in there. We haven't seen a ton of him. The top two of Steele Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg have played most of the snaps, but they keep saying they want to get Cody Simon here. I don't know if this is the week to do it, but what have you made of these linebackers who didn't have maybe their best game against Notre Dame, but still were able to make some plays?
Well, I think they played a great game the week before against Western Kentucky. 10 tackles and 8 tackles for those two guys. Not as much production this time around. And again, people will look in coverage that the Notre Dame tight end did make some plays, but man, Steele Chambers is right here when the guy's making a one-handed catch or something. I mean, what do you want? And
not all of them were matched with linebackers, too.
If you had better pass rush up front, they wouldn't complete that throw. I mean, everything is part of everything. And, people look at Chambers and said he gave up that play. No, the defense gave up that play. So, to me, I think it's great that Simon got some run. Even better, he was there to nudge Hartman out of bounds on 4th down, kind of a laissez-faire type play. And then as you did a forensic look at it at the line, he never had the ball past the line to gain, not even close. So, when they reviewed it, they put the ball back a couple feet, and it was 1st down Ohio. So that guy paid dividends being in the game. So, I can't speak to how they're going to do it. People still want C.J. Hicks as well. We haven't seen C.J. Hicks either. He played 11 plays in the game they beat Western Kentucky by 53 points. So, there's a lot out there, and I think that I guess we'll just have to wait and see how they attack it this week with Maryland.
Anything else that stood out that we haven't touched on from these press conferences?
Geez, I always go back and watch them, even though we're sitting right there, because I was working on a Knowles story before Knowles even came in, which I'm going to post on Bucknuts as soon as possible. I'm trying to think anything else that really stood out.
Question about Marvin Harrison. Coach said that he is
that's a good one.
Good, probably practicing all week and going to play.
Yeah, the question was from our friend Dan Hope is Marvin Harrison Jr. going to be? Do you expect Marvin Harrison Jr. will be full go this week? And Coach Day said, yes, I do.
And that was that.
There you go. So Marvin Harrison Jr. Now you never know. It wouldn't be the first time they said someone's full go, and that they, maybe he's not. But it sounds like Buckeyes escaped disaster there. Yeah. I was thinking, man, 2nd straight year, #1 receivers out for the year. You got to be kidding me. He might not even miss a game. He didn't even miss that game.
He didn't
miss a series.
Came right back in.
He's a hockey player. He didn't miss a shift. Yeah. No, that probably was one of those things that even Marvin, not just the fan base was scary. Probably when your leg bends back like that in the moment, probably scared me. Probably thought, oh, it's a serious injury. And then they're able to do whatever they did and tape it back up. And good job by the training staff. And thank goodness Marvin looks like he's going to be full go this week.
Yeah, and he's talked before about kind of the stretching and stuff he does with all of his joints. I think that probably saved him a little bit there. He also talked just the week before the Notre Dame game about how he played through a sprained ankle most of last year and still put up the numbers he did. So even if it is bothering him a little bit, you still expect him to be pretty good. We saw him last week while we were doing interviews right over here, catching some passes. Now, he wasn't moving, but didn't have serious tape job on his ankle or anything like that. So it looked like it was moving in the right direction. Steve, anything else that stood out to you that we should hit on real quick?
Nothing I really think of. I just think that this is going to be a fun game on Saturday. The weather is turning. It's supposed to be 85 degrees here today, but on Saturday the high is like 56, and a slight chance of rain as well on Saturday. So bundle up and maybe bring a poncho if you're coming to the game on Saturday. 4-0 versus 5-0. It doesn't get any better than that.
All right. Well, as Steve said earlier, videos from Ryan Day's press conference are already up. Dave's working on Jim Knowles' story. We'll have plenty of more throughout the week. Yeah, I think that about covers it. Thanks, guys, for tuning in. Patrick Murphy, Dave, Steve, Bucknuts 24/7 Sports. We'll talk to you guys later.
Good stuff, fellas.
All right, kids.